The tragic and untimely passing of Taylor Hawkins, the drummer for Foo Fighters. And, uh, someone that's seen Foo Fighters two or three times in person, but been a fan since, probably my teenage years, I'd say. Became more of a fan as I got into like festivals and they were kind of becoming like the legendary rock act of the mid 2010s and on. Taylor Hawkins just always stood out whenever you saw the Foo Fighters because he's such a fun-loving presence. I mean, if you see the picture behind me on YouTube, it's him playing the drums with like this huge smile. And that was pretty much how he was the entire time. Not only like a world-class drummer, but just seemed like a genuinely like upbeat and nice and charismatic person. Obviously, I think the relationship with him and Dave Grohl is well documented, but just that they were incredibly close. Dave Grohl described him in I think his most recent book as like a brother, like a legitimately saw him as a brother and like a musical soulmate. I think he said, and to be a drummer good enough to be in a band with Dave Grohl, who arguably is one of the best drummers from the 1990s, with coming up with one of the biggest bands of all time, says a lot about Taylor Hawkins' talent, and he always brought it. So, dying at 50 pretty tragically was really shocking, especially because they had just played the night before for Lollapalooza, South America. So definitely the Lollapalooza, Brazil, I should say. Definitely very, very sad. I mean, Dave, I know you're not as big of a Foo Fighter fan, but what was just your initial reaction seeing it?
Yeah, obviously he's very unexpected, very sad. Um, I was just really just thinking, like, what's the future of the band?
Yeah.
Because Foo Fighters, we talked about Medicine at Midnight last year, early 2021 album, their 10th record, and honestly, pretty solid, especially very good for a 10th record. Definitely didn't seem like there's any signs of them slowing down. And not that Taylor Hawkins was a founding member of the band, he wasn't. He joined later, but clearly is a huge part of the band today. And like his charisma, I think, really shone through, and especially in like live performances, there's countless moments of him like helping Dave Grohl when his voice started to go during a set or something, and singing
Yeah.
himself. So I think for Foo Fighters fans, it's a really tragic loss, and you just hope like the fabric of the band can continue. Obviously, we associate Dave Grohl as like the central figure of Foo Fighters. Obviously, is the founder and figurehead, but you hope that he can kind of galvanize the group. I'd imagine they're going to take some time away after this, but also something I didn't know until I was reading up after he passed. But I didn't realize that Taylor Hawkins actually came up in Alanis Morissette's touring band when she
Yeah.
was touring Giant Little Pill. So quite the career for him. It's just really really sad that to see it go because Foo Fighters, arguably the biggest, most successful, most well liked of the big rock bands of yore that are still going. So yeah, it's a really tough one. I'm curious to see what happens at the Grammys this week because before this had happened, Foo Fighters were expected to win Best Rock Album for Medicine at Midnight. I have to imagine the speech would be dedicated to Taylor, and you certainly hope that this is a big part of the broadcast now for that award.
Yeah. I imagine there's probably going to be a pretty big like moment for him for sure. You know, just like a couple of like moments from seeing him live that I just wanted to share. First, when the first time I saw them live was at Firefly 2014, and it was their first time playing together as a band in like a few years. That tour, and they came out as the Holy Shits for their encore, which was this like basically this like bar cover band that just played like classic rock hits. And after their set, there's like a video on the screen of Dave and Taylor Hawkins backstage, and Taylor Hawkins is like, "We gotta give him at least one more song." And Dave Grohl's like, "All right, one more." And then Taylor Hawkins was like, "No, no, no, two." And he like got all the way up to five, and it was like a great back and forth between them. You obviously saw like how much they like really liked like being in a band together, which was cool. And then he came out and he sang one of the songs, and I think it probably was Under Pressure or Somebody to Love. I can't remember exactly which one he sang, but um, just a really talented musician beyond drumming. So he actually had a pretty decent voice, which is pretty cool that Dave Grohl found a drummer for his band who also could sing. And then yeah, just seeing them live at City Field a few years after that. That's when Dave Grohl was on the throne of guitars, right? And
Mm.
uh, obviously takes away a little bit of the show because Dave can't run around and be his normal self at that point. But it was always just like a joy to watch Taylor Hawkins play drums because he just was like he's like Animal from the Muppets, dude. Just like the energy he brought and the way he was just like slamming on stuff and never missing a beat. Just truly a legend. Definitely a huge loss for rock music.